There's a question that a lot of dietitians get asked: how much should I eat, or am I eating too much? Registered nutritionist Andrea Holwegner is here to tell us 3 common myths, and then you're going to give us 3 sort of ways that we can navigate this for ourselves.
You bet.
Okay, so let's start with some of these myths. The first one: the food label serving size is the recommended amount to eat.
This one's an interesting one
Yeah.
because, of course, what the food label says and how much we actually will eat or need to eat are 2 totally different things. One of my favorite examples is looking at ice cream or a cereal box. Often about a half a cup that you see on an ice cream label, which is just like a tiny little scoop, is usually not what people typically would eat. Usually it's double to triple that. So if you're using the label just to do the math and scale the numbers a little bit differently.
Okay, let's get into our second myth: the portion sizes in a device or chart, that they're accurate. Are they accurate?
Oftentimes people are looking at meal plans, they're looking at sort of how much I should eat based on someone else's plan. And everyone's a little bit different here. Best thing to really do is actually, we're going to get into those steps, but really know that your portion size is going to be very unique. No one can actually determine that for you.
Okay, so maybe the charts aren't necessarily that accurate. And then the third myth we're going to tackle is: I need to eat less on days that I am not active. And this is one for me, because I'm always thinking on those days, if I'm training or working out or go for a big hike or something, that I need to eat a lot more.
What we find based on more intuitive-based eating is that sometimes on the days you're most active, you're going to be the least hungry because you're busy, you're distracted, your body's doing its thing. And what you might find is on those rest days, when your body's recovering, your body will ask for way more food. And so really at the end of the day, exercise should never be used as a reward or a punishment in terms of how much you're actually allowed to eat.
Okay, so we want to learn to navigate this ourselves. You've got 3 kind of simple ways that we can sort of stick to this and figure it out. What are they?
You bet. The first thing we want to do when we're looking at portion sizes is we want to use our eyes.
Right.
Rather than looking up numbers and calories and counting stuff, I'm a huge fan of really looking at using our eyes. What we're after here is really thinking about getting that plate half vegetables, a quarter of your grains or starchy types of foods, and a quarter based on protein.
Okay.
Where people often get this wrong is, of course, a meatitarian. Someone like my husband naturally probably would have the half a plate stretching, of course, because he likes those typical types of foods. Someone like me that's more of a carb junkie would naturally probably want to have half a plate of pasta, potato, rice, those good things. And what we're after is really trying to make your plate by design, because if you eat by default, it will probably not look like this.
Right, okay, so just really get that half
Use the eyes
every time. Okay, what's the next step?
Second one is using your hands. Okay. And so we've got some good portion size management tools right on our body. And so when we're thinking about how much vegetables we should put on here, everyone's hand sizes are a little bit different. But I always say if you can get like 1 to 2 of those hands full of vegetables, we're going to be in good shape. This usually means you got to have 2 different types of vegetables at supper time.
Right.
Because it's hard to eat a half a plate of broccoli.
Right.
I like broccoli, but that's a lot of broccoli.
Yeah.
So my suggestion might be to have at least 2 more types of vegetables there, because the more you have, the more you're actually going to eat.
Okay, and then our third?
And back to the protein. I gotta finish this. Protein. What we're after here is the size of your palm. Okay. And when we're thinking about your grain or your starch, what we're after here is 1 to 2 sort of cup sizes of your hands. So whatever you can kind of realistically fill in that hand is a good way to go for portions.
Perfect. But once again, we're looking at almost double in vegetables. Okay, and then finally, we're going to use our intuition.
You bet. So intuition here, big thing that we need to talk about, because oftentimes we forget to check in with what our body cues are saying. Right. And so before a meal, really think about, how hungry am I? We use a scale in our office that goes from 1 to 5. Just like guess. Best guess on sort of where my hunger level is at. Midway through the meal, and of course towards the end of the meal, we want to start checking in again. Like, where am I at now in terms of fullness on a scale of 1 to 5? And our goal is that we're eating enough to be fully satisfied. Not just kind of stopping because we think we should, and of course not eating to the point of total physical discomfort and saying,
whoa, until we're set. So really just checking in with ourselves instead of maybe the outside of a box. It's great advice, as always. Registered nutritionist Andrea Holwegner, and for more information, head to healthstandnutrition.com.